Welcome to the Intuitive Therapist Podcast with Janis R. Cohen, therapist, clairvoyant, empath, and medium. Listen in as she takes a no-nonsense deep dive into real human struggles and how to resolve them. Janis will share channeled information from her spirit guide team, as well as the angels and archangels, to help you master your emotional, physical, financial, and spiritual destiny. And now, Janis R. Cohen.
Hey y'all, this is Janis Cohen here on the Intuitive Therapist Podcast. So glad you're with me for this week because I got something kind of pretty powerful to talk about today. And if you're like most people, you repress incomplete experiences, meaning those experiences that have ended but still carry an emotional charge. This is what I mean by incomplete emotional experiences. And I've said this before, I'm not a fan of the word heal. It means that there's something inherently wrong with each of us, which is not true. We are here on this earth to go through tough times, and mixed within those tough times are times that really break us down so that we can rebuild ourselves into our next level of existence. We all do it, believe we have a handle on our past pain and betrayal, but until you do the work, really do the work, all you'll be doing is pushing down below the surface and do what you can to maintain its hiding place. And I see so many people do this all of the time. Fail to completely look at and deal with an issue. Instead, they just bury it, thinking that, look, intellectually, I've made peace with it. That's good enough. I don't want to deal with anything more of it. They're aware of it, always, but haven't done the work to complete the experience. And everything that we go through, that you go through, is for a purpose. Even those things that you can't explain. No matter how horrible it is, and you may never know the purpose for the horrible experience in this current lifetime, but they come from somewhere, and they come for some reason. Life is always teaching us about ourselves. The self we are aware of, and the other aspects of ourselves that we keep hidden and don't even know about. I know that for me, living with unresolved and unaddressed feelings doesn't feel good to me at all. In fact, it eats away at me and I can't stand it. Cannot stand holding on to unresolved stuff. And in all honesty, I've made an agreement with myself that I will not do that. I'm not going to harbor feelings longer than the moment that I feel them, so I will deal with them directly. And in all honesty, I choose to deal with things directly because, I don't want my mind to wander into places it doesn't need to be and then misinterpret something because my skewed lens is processing this from past experiences. Is this making sense, right? Because we use our past to process. It's like our filter. And I don't know about you, but my mind can go to some crazy places when I feel hurt or betrayed or taken advantage of, right? And so I do my best to be aware of that and to deal with it head on so that I'm not sitting for minutes or hours at a time stewing. I refuse to do that. So each of us has a lens through which we perceive and process and assign meaning to things in our life. We can't help it. We need to create context for everything. And that's what our ego does. That's what our mind does. And our context is based on the experiences that we've had, the conditioning that we've grown up with, and the assumptions and beliefs that and meaning we've assigned to all of that, right? And sometimes, most times, we misinterpret something because we are coming from a hurt place or an angry place or a place of being the victim, where we haven't recovered from any of that, unable to protect and defend ourselves or stand in our certainty. So the bad things that have happened to you, or someone or many people may have disappointed you or burned you or taken advantage of you or betrayed you, broke your heart, that shit does not go quietly. In fact, it stays within us until we deal with it. And the severity It will do one of two things. It will rot you from the inside out, or it will turn up the volume to such a degree with enough external triggering experiences that you either deal with it or you will destroy yourself. And you'll always be haunted by what you haven't resolved. And it will always find a way to contribute to your current life by causing you to mistrust others and feel that on some level life isn't fair. Well, guess what? Life is not fair. Life isn't about what's fair anyway. It's about dealing with your shit and growing. If life were fair, people wouldn't become someone greater when tragedy strikes or when they've experienced profound loss or pain. Those triggers propel us to either sink into ourselves or to use it to create change in the world. It's not easy to honor pain, betrayal, and disappointment, but we need to. It's there for a reason. And it's not easy to carry shame, anger, or pain. That's a full-time job. Nothing that feels bad is good to carry within. Nothing that feels bad will ever make us feel light. It just doesn't work that way. But we do it that way. Why? So what do you do if you're someone who tends to harbor feelings inside of you that you haven't fully dealt with yet? You may become somebody who internalizes everything and then holds grudges unknowingly for other people because you don't feel like you can trust others. When in fact, because you haven't dealt with your stuff, the truth is you really can't trust yourself to keep you safe. You may become somebody who's aggressive, keeping people at a safe distance to protect you because you haven't dealt with your shit. You may be somebody who acts like all is well, but inside you feel alone and lonely and misunderstood and not part of the collective because you haven't dealt with your shit. And I'm sure there are more versions that I could describe of who you might be, but is this making sense to you? Can you relate to what I'm saying? You can't live a clean life if you've got shit in your pants. And y'all, I am not sure where that just came from, but that's the image and those were the words that I got. It's true. You can't feel and live a clean life if you've got shit in your pants. Somewhere and at some point, the shit is going to start to stink beyond your tolerance of it, meaning that someone is going to come along at some point and trigger that deeply buried, unresolved, energetically charged aspect of you, the aspect of you that you thought you buried so deeply and so well that nothing could unearth it, and then you'll react. You'll be triggered because it's time for you to deal with it. Partnerships do this all the time. It's a great example, right? Whether you're married or not, you're in a partnership, a relationship. And the partners we choose are here to be our teachers. We choose shitty partners to learn how to honor and respect ourselves and to develop healthy boundaries of what we will and won't accept. And our partners are mirrors for us. Sometimes we can choose an amazing partner because they are there to create a sense of safety that we've never been used to or have never had in our lives. And so we have to adjust to that, right? Everyone and everything is a mirror and a teacher for us about how we're doing in our own lives. And if you've been betrayed and you haven't learned to trust yourself completely and cleaned your side of the street about that, then someone or something will show up and show you that there's an emotional residue that hasn't been dealt with that's still there, that's still clogging your energetic field. And if you continue to be let down by others and haven't learned to eliminate expectations, the ones that you hinge your happiness on, well, you're going to call in more experiences and people that show you that no one and nothing will ever meet your experiences, your expectations, and nothing can help you feel happy but you. And that expectations only screw you in the end. Learn to be aware of the fact that you have expectations. And you'll know that you have expectations when you hope something will be a certain way versus just being neutral about it. That's a dead giveaway. Is this making sense? If you see any repeated pattern in your life, You've got unresolved shit ready to deal with. Okay? Something isn't entirely clean. Some chapter is not entirely closed. And not all chapters that are closed, even if you've convinced yourself they are. If you have any ounce of reaction, or if old fears creep up, you've got shit to deal with before the chapter is really closed. And let me tell you a secret, even if chapters are closed, there will always be others to deal with. And that's just what life is about. Each of us has limiting beliefs that are miles deep, miles and miles and miles deep. And if you're one who takes time to identify them on a daily basis, yes, I do mean a daily basis, then you understand what I'm talking about. Well, you'll think that you've dealt with a limiting belief, and perhaps you have to an extent. But then something will come along and trigger you, the final aspect of it, and all of your fears will come to the surface. Have you ever felt that happen? I know that happens to me. And I know for me, there are times where I have to literally remind myself, talk myself a little bit off the ledge, that a belief isn't true when my fears come up, because I haven't entirely dealt with the limiting beliefs around the fear. Each day I journal, and each day new limiting beliefs show up because I haven't completely dealt with something, or new situations in work or personally show up that trigger an old response pattern, a pattern that I thought I had dealt with. And I'm always grateful for those things that show up like that, even though it feels inconvenient or unattractive to deal with. It's like, okay, wait a minute. This is a signal. There's something else I need to address so I can complete it. So I'm going to give you a process that I use every day, all the time, to write, to express myself that way, but also in my head to process limiting beliefs that aren't helpful, so that I can eliminate the energy of them and complete what I need to complete. So here's what I do. First, I notice the unpleasant feeling that I have. I just become aware of it, because when I have unpleasant feelings, it means something needs to be dealt with, right? That makes sense. So I breathe and I take a step back for a little bit, and I become the observer of my thoughts and feelings. It's like a pan back in a movie. Second, I get to writing. I don't keep any of this shit in my head anymore. I do not, because between the limiting beliefs that need to be dealt with and the ones that form on top of them, you can't get a clear read. You just can't. So I do a brain dump, and I write all of the thoughts and emotions and beliefs that are showing up. I journal until I'm done dumping what's inside of me out on paper, and this is before I begin my day. I ask myself if what I believe is true, because I've already written everything down, and there's typically a main belief, right? And if it's bad, then I know it's a lie, because it's something that I'm scared of happening again. And by the way, y'all, if you're holding beliefs that feel bad, which we all are, there is some primary emotion that you're feeling that scares you. Want some primary belief that is at the core of everything you experience that you haven't dealt with, the root cause. And that is why it isn't true, right? So you might think things, you might have made great progress, but you still have a sense of being unworthy or undeserving, right? Or not belonging or not good enough. Those are the typical ones that live inside each of us. Again, you may have made great progress doing your work, but you'll notice that when you don't feel good feelings, there's something connected to one of those four. And the bad feelings aren't true because they ultimately reflect back to you what you're capable of dealing with. And you're ultimately capable of dealing with anything. Seriously. So the limiting beliefs are always wrong. Just because we believe something doesn't make it true. If it makes you feel bad, then it isn't true, because your higher self knows the truth about you, and it knows what you're choosing to believe as a human being. but you're not your thoughts. And just because you have thought things over and over and over again and believe things over and over and over again doesn't make them true. It just makes them practice and habitual. So you're not your thoughts, you're not your beliefs. And if you become the observer of those things, then you'll see the lesson in everything. Your key is to get into observation mode. So the bad stuff is just evidence of where we are misaligned in our lives. That's why chapters aren't really closed, because we are misaligned. So after I've identified where I am misaligned through my writing, through my awareness of the main beliefs that I'm holding about X, Y, or Z, then I ask my higher self and my team, my spirit guide team, how can I see this differently? And then I just kind of open the floodgates and I just start writing what they tell me, what I'm hearing, what's coming through. And then when I'm done with that, I form a new belief and get my energy behind that. And that typically clears the slate. But every day we're doing this belief work, every day. And you'll do it for the rest of your life. So don't think that you've dealt with something once, you've written something down once, that it's done. It may, a particular belief, but when it comes to the deeper rooted things, you're going to be working on it on a daily basis. You're going to continue to call in triggering experiences until you deal with and complete the incomplete energetic experience and make it neutral in your life. Until you do that, you'll spend the rest of your life waiting for others to disappoint you, betray you, and hurt you. It's just how it goes. You'll miss out on all the good stuff when you focus on protecting yourself. So take the time each day to revisit what isn't cleared up within you. Get out of your head and get it out down on paper. Don't be afraid of what comes up, because you're already feeling it, so there's nothing to be afraid of. You just don't know what it is that you're feeling or why. So do the work around it. You should definitely be afraid of what you keep inside and don't process outwardly, because your ego will convince you of some pretty heinous shit if you let it. Get out of your head, get your beliefs and thoughts down on paper or the computer, observe them, disprove them, get behind a new belief, and then close the chapter. You'll know a chapter is closed when you no longer have an emotional charge, when you are no longer triggered, when something no longer bothers you. I guarantee you, if you get out of your head and get your beliefs down on paper, you will notice the difference in how you feel and how you begin to experience life. You'll become so aware of a bad feeling and the belief that's connected with it that you'll be able to do this work in a snap rather than sitting down and writing. It just takes practice. And if you don't choose to do that, don't expect life to feel entirely good to you. You're going to be haunted by your shit. You'll be tested to see if you're ready to deal with your shit, right? And you'll get to decide using your free will how happy and free you truly want to be based on the choices that you make of dealing with your stuff. And it all comes down to you and your choices. And I hope you choose to disarm the wounds within and clean up your emotional operating system. Your happiness depends on it. I wish you a blessed day, a wonderful week, and as always, live intuitively.
Thanks for listening to The Intuitive Therapist. If you like what you heard, the best compliment you can give us is to share this podcast with a friend. And be sure to give us some stars and a favorable review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in.